लेट 18th सेंचुरी में जब ब्रिटिशर्स ने अपने आप को यहाँ पे इस्टेब्लिश करना शुरू किया तो दे वर गेटिंग वेरी कंज्यूम्ड बाय द इंडियन कल्चर. जैसे कि आज के ज़माने में वी बेंड ओवर बैकवर्ड्स टू एम्यूलेट देम, इट वाज द ऑपोजिट इन दोज डेज. दीज ब्रिटिशर्स वर इंक्रीजिंगली ड्रॉन टू द इंडियन कल्चर. और इस सब में तवाइफ का किरदार बहुत अहम था. उस ज़माने की कुछ पेंटिंग्स भी मौजूद हैं दैट शो ब्रिटिश ऑफिसर्स वेयरिंग इंडियन क्लोथ्स, स्मोकिंग हुक्का and enjoying dance performances. Many even married these courtesans and had children with them. There was even a term coined for such officers, nabob, which was mutilation of the word nawab. Now this was a huge threat to the Britishers because वो यहाँ पे हमें लूटने के लिए आए हुए थे. They were not here to assimilate with the local culture. So the British authorities decided that they would start recalling all these British officers who in their minds had become too Indian. साथ ही साथ British made another policy decision. To prevent the Indianization of British officers, the British authorities at the beginning of the 19th century started sending British women to Indian subcontinent to prevent British officials from falling prey to the lure of the Tawaif. और जब अंग्रेज औरत यहाँ पे आई, that is when all hell broke loose. Initially जब British औरत यहाँ पे आई तो she also adopted the usual colonial narrative of civilizing mission and rescuing the Indian woman from the clutches of the oppressive Indian society. But when the British woman came across the Tawaif, that's when their narrative took a huge hit. The highly domesticated British woman was absolutely horrified at the level of emancipation that the Tawaif enjoyed. The Tawaif was far more emancipated than what the homebound, tight-laced British woman could ever imagine. But most of all, the British woman was shocked at the power the Tawaif had over men, especially the British men. British author Mary Martha Sherwood expressed her sentiments when she saw the profound effects that the Tawaif had over men, especially the British men. She said, "The women had a way with music which drew the enchanted lovers to the lair. Their singing had a mesmeric effect on the men as they sang night after night. The song of the unhappy dancing girls, accompanied by the sweet yet melancholy music of the cithara. All these Englishmen who were beguiled by this sweet music, slowly sacrificing themselves to drinking, smoking, want of rest, and the witcheries of the unhappy daughters of heathens and infidels." So threatened was the British woman, and so at loss was she to decipher the effects that these women had over men, that she actually accused the Tawaif of practicing witchcraft. Imagine. So in essence, the Tawaif had not only become a threat to the colonial objectives, but also a sexual threat to the British woman. And that's when the British started the anti-Tawaif movement. The British narrative took a turn, and they started painting Tawaif as an immoral and fallen woman who represented the decadence of the Indian society. So either the Indian woman was too oppressed, or she was a vulgar and immoral creature. There was no middle path. As a matter of policy, the British officially rebranded all women belonging to the institution of courtesan as the Notch Girl. This seemingly innocuous move was actually a very cunning one. Stripping them of all the talents they possessed, the British instead focused on one element in her repertoire that was the most exhibitionist and could be used the most to stoke an anti-Tawaif sentiment. एक और दिलचस्प चीज़ जो मैं बताता चलूँ, 1849 में जिस वक्त अंग्रेज़ों ने पंजाब पे कब्ज़ा किया तो उन्होंने अपना जो पहला कंटोनमेंट बनाया था वो उन्होंने बनाया था अनारकली के इलाके में, और उन्होंने वहाँ पे कंटोनमेंट के अंदर ही एक ब्रॉथल बनाया. एंड दिस इज़ समथिंग दैट दे यूज्ड टू डू एवरीवेयर, नॉट जस्ट लाहौर. ये पूरे इंडिया में जहाँ जहाँ ये कैंटोनमेंट बनाते थे, जहाँ कब्ज़ा करते थे और कैंटोनमेंट बनाते थे, उसके अंदर एक अपने सोल्जर्स के लिए बाकायदा प्रोस्टिट्यूशन डेन और ब्रॉथल बनाया करते थे, जिसको कहा जाता होता था लाल बाज़ार. सो इमेजिन वो लोग जो कि तवाइफ को इमोरल कह रहे होते थे, वो खुद प्रोस्टिट्यूशन को प्रमोट कर रहे होते थे. This was the level of hypocrisy of these Britishers. But unhygienic as these British were, they started spreading STDs among the women of the brothels. और फिर जब ये उन औरतों के अंदर STDs फैला दिया करते होते थे, तो उसके बाद ये अंग्रेज उन कैंटोनमेंट्स के अंदर लॉक हॉस्पिटल्स बना लिया करते होते थे। लॉक हॉस्पिटल्स क्या थे? लॉक हॉस्पिटल्स एज द नेम सजेस्ट, उसके अंदर इन औरतों को लॉक कर दिया करते थे जब तक ये वहाँ से क्योर नहीं हो जाती होती थी। बहुत सी औरतें इस ट्रीटमेंट के बाद यहाँ से ब्रॉथल छोड़ के भाग भी जाती होती थी। बट थिंग्स टर्न टू अ हेड with the onset of the War of 1857. Already enraged at the anti-Tawaif movement triggered by the colonial administration, the Tawaif played a very important role against the British during this war. Their kotas became a gathering place for anti-British elements. Many courtesans financed the warriors fighting against the British. Many even spied against the British. They were also significant in leaking secrets of the British by luring the British officials into entertainment where they would get them drunk and force them to reveal their plans. Then there were some Tawaif like Azizan Bai of Kanpur who physically fought against the British. So to teach them a lesson, one of the first things the British did after the War of 1857 was introducing laws to destroy the Tawaif. The Indian Penal Code of 1860 and the Contagious Diseases Act of 1864 classified all female performers, including the Tawaif, as prostitutes. Through these laws, the British made it mandatory for all sex workers to get registered with the authorities to operate in the cantonments and forced the Tawaif to do the same, as they had now been branded prostitutes. On the societal front, various newspapers and pamphlets were circulated among the citizens that attacked Tawaif for their supposed sexual debauchery. The movement gained such steam that the same Indians who used to revel in the art and craft of the Tawaif prior to the British, they started feeling ashamed of this aspect of their culture. For example, Subudh Patrika, a Bombay journal operated by the locals, said, "Stripped of all their acquirements, these women are a class of prostitutes, pure and simple. Their profession is immoral and they live by vice." A Bengali reformer, Keshav Chandra Sen, described the Nautch girl as a creature who is a hideous woman. Hell is in her eyes. In her breast is a vast ocean of poison. Her blandishments are India's ruin. Alas, her smile is India's death. Such was the indoctrination of the locals at the hands of the British. इस सब में हुआ ये that the municipality of Lahore was established in the 1862, जिसके founders में मेरे forefathers भी शामिल थे. And feeling the pressure from the society, the Municipal Corporation of Lahore passed a resolution that these women would be shifted from their current location of Chowk Mati to a new location of Ghalla Mandi Heera Singh. That is how heeramandi started. Ghalla Mandi Heera Singh was in one corner of the city which was not very well inhabited. ये एक ऐसा इलाका था जहाँ पे रिवर रावी की एक शाख बहती होती थी, और जिस तरह के पंजाबी की एक अखान है कि चल पुत्र रावी, ना कोई आवी ना कोई जावी. So this was a spot जहाँ पे ना कोई आता था ना कोई जाता था. And in the minds of authorities, this was the perfect spot for these women, because they thought कि this will deal a huge blow to the profession of these tawaifs. आने वाले सालों में अंग्रेज़ों ने एंटी कोर्टिजान मूवमेंट को जारी रखा. Declared prostitutes, they were placed under the direct control of the town criminal officer. An anti-flesh trade act was slammed on their profession, which brought such shame that many of these women stopped functioning altogether. But the most damaging thing that the British did was enforcement of unprecedented patriarchal norms of control over female bodies. Using the Hindu and Muslim religious figures, they started making laws to this effect. For example, marriage was made mandatory for all women under the law during this time. Noble as it may sound, the actual target were the Tawaif, क्योंकि वो रिवायती तौर पे अनमैरिड रहती होती थी. ये जो पेट्रियार्की का राग ये अंग्रेज हमेशा लाते रहते हैं, it was actually the British who imposed the worst form of patriarchy in Indian subcontinent. The profession of the Tawaif became so tainted that one Lucknow newspaper stated, "All prostitutes must be registered and classified according to the facilities they offer. Each woman should be given a wooden ticket with her age, address and fixed rate chiseled on it by the authorities. And this ticket should be affixed on her front door. Prostitutes who refuse registration on the pretext that they intend to lead reformed lives only do so to evade the law by moving to another town. Such women should be branded on the chin, cheek or forehead of their beautiful faces. Yahi nahi, an early 19th century guide to Indian customs actually cautioned its readers that these women, the Tawaif, they used donkey semen to make charms and cast spell on their clients. Imagine. But in my personal view, the biggest blow to the Tawaif culture was the disempowerment of the independent states under the British. With the disempowerment, the courtesans also started falling out of favor because they started losing the patronage of the royalty and nobility that they used to cater to. As a result, their income and their agency both started dwindling. To this must be added the change in taste brought by the British. A garden party, a cricket match, a play, or the races now competed with the notch to amuse those with means. Thus, a way of life that indulged in culture, in flourishing of arts and etiquettes, was now being pushed to the sidelines by the supposed high priests of morality. The transition from Tawaif to Notch girl was not just a change of name. It incorporated a marked shift in perception of the Tawaif, who now became a mere performer, an entertainer rather than a figure who represented the aesthetic grace of the local culture. Interestingly, although the British administration made considerable efforts to categorize Tawaif as fallen women who represented the decadence of Indian culture, there actually exists evidence that the British woman in India at the time, she held profound admiration for the Tawaif, and she actually considered the Tawaif as a model of female empowerment.